Cathy O'Brien, welcome to the program.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Cathy O'Brien was born into an abusive family, to say the least. Her father, a fourth-grade educated worm digger, produced child pornography of Cathy and her siblings. He was caught sending this pornography through the U.S. mail when Cathy was about 5 years old, at which time a faction of the CIA made a deal with her father to sell her into the CIA's mind control projects MKUltra and Project Artichoke in exchange for immunity from his prosecution. Her sworn testimonies of abuse and torture by her and the CIA were proven and tested through the U.S. courts and were presented to both houses of Congress. To learn more about Cathy O'Brien, visit trance-formation.com or purchase the book Trance Formation of America. Cathy, what are your earliest memories of your life in the CIA?
My earliest memories of life in the CIA began with being sold into the MKUltra Project, and that was due to a local politician that was involved in Project Paperclip, which brought the Nazi and fascist scientists to the United States after World War II. These included those who knew about manipulating the minds and about mind control. They knew that children like myself who were abused, especially from birth, would be suffering from a dissociative identity disorder. And it was that disorder which made me a prime candidate, or a chosen one, for the CIA's MKUltra Mind Control. So at the age of 5, I was already being thrust into the project. When my father was flown to Boston, Massachusetts to learn how to manipulate the subconscious mind. Because when abuse occurs, the conscious mind compartmentalizes memory of that abuse photographically, because our brains just automatically photographically record events surrounding trauma. And the compartmentalized memory of the conscious mind leaves the subconscious mind wide open to be easily led and manipulated. Our subconscious mind has no ability to consciously reason, question, or comprehend. So we just do what we're told to do. And my father was flown to Boston for that training. At that time, the Catholic Church was heavily involved in MKUltra Mind Control along with the CIA. And this, in later years, now moving way ahead, became what is known as that Catholic child abuse scandal involving Cardinal Law out of Boston. And that was part of the MKUltra Project Monarch that I was born into and exposed to. So these were some very deep aspects of the roots of MKUltra Mind Control in the United States that are in my earliest photographic memories of having been sold into the project. The politician who was covering up for the CIA was a local politician named Gerald Ford. Of course, he went on to become President of the United States. And as his political career escalated, so too did my victimization in MKUltra until I was working on a White House, Pentagon level, particularly during the Reagan-Bush administration. And those projects and black budget operations that I was used in are detailed in our testimony for the U.S. Congressional Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence Oversight, which is Trance Formation of America. We decided to release that book en masse when the 1947 National Security Act was invoked on our case in an attempt to suppress the information on mind control, because mind control continues to be classified top secret since it is used on and by the U.S. military and is considered the ultimate weapon of mass destruction. So it is still classified, and Transformation of America details the operations that I was used in, and all those facts are proven and validated, or it could not, Mark and I would not still be speaking out as U.S. government whistleblowers on the subject. We've also got a second book, Access Denied for Reasons of National Security, and it details how, after a lifetime of abuse and deliberate, systematic MKUltra mind control abuses that I went through, and the programming I endured on military and NASA installations, how I could heal from something as extreme as that, to remember what so many government reputations were staked on that I would forget. I did not forget because of that photographic compartmentalization of memory in the brain, and I just needed to be able to learn how to open those compartments in my brain, and it took safety. Mark kept me safe, and he handed me the keys to my mind so that I could begin deprogramming myself. Mark handed me the keys to be able to deprogram, and those methods that Mark knew as a government insider during the same time period that I was being victimized, Mark was outraged at the criminal activity of the government, and he was outraged that MKUltra had gone into the private sector targeting children like myself. And so he rescued me and my daughter, who was born into MKUltra Mind Control, and he gave me those keys to rehabilitate. That is in our second book, Access Denied for Reasons of National Security. And people all over the world report healing from varying levels of trauma, abuse, torture, PTSD, and mind control by applying to themselves those methods that Mark taught me that are detailed in our second book, Access Denied for Reasons of National Security. So for the details of this extreme situation and circumstance of how mind control is in our society and is affecting us all every day, I would strongly recommend that people read those books and get that information. It's hardcore proven fact. And it's why Mark and I have been U.S. government whistleblowers now for over 25 years.
I'm interested in the upbringing within the CIA. Did you go to school? Where did you live? Was there any sense of normalcy? Did you have friends?
I did. I was born in 1957 in Muskegon, Michigan, and the political aspect was in my life right so early on. Plus, my local Catholic church was heavily involved in the abuse. I felt like there was nowhere to turn. My school was also a part of MKUltra because at that time, the governor of Michigan, George Romney, was bringing mind control into the school system. And that was the very onset of global education. It was the very onset of what is now termed Common Core in the United States. It was also called America 2000. They changed the name, but ultimately what it is designed to increase our children's learning capacity while decreasing their ability to critically analyze. In other words, it just pumps information into their heads. So with that being in the school system, even when I went to school, since I was already being conditioned for mind control, taking that information in on a subconscious level was a natural. I felt like I had nowhere to turn. I couldn't turn to my school. I couldn't turn to my church. I couldn't turn to politicians. My mother's father ran a Blue Masonic Lodge, and within that Masonic Lodge were various politicians that were involved in my abuse, as well as policemen. And having law enforcement involved in my victimization as well, I truly felt there was no place to turn. And as I began losing my capacity for any conscious thought at all, I had a strong sense that the whole world was involved in that kind of abuse. So my last free thought was longing for a place where people didn't abuse each other. But in my world, in my life's experience, it was all I knew. And then around the age of 6, as my victimization went full on MKUltra, I lost my capacity for that free thought. And it wasn't until I was turning 30 years old and Mark rescued my daughter Kelly and I from our Pentagon White House level MKUltra victimization that I began to see for the first time in my life that there are good people in the world. And it took quite a long time to be able to even grasp that concept and learn to trust and believe in truth and peace and the goodness and humanity again. And for me, now that I am free and I'm healed and speaking out, it is a celebration every day that I am free to have my free thought, to live true to soul, to have soul expression, to stand for the things that I believe in, and to see that love is indeed the most powerful force in the universe, and that truth always prevails and love always wins. It was a long journey to get to this point, but it is one that has given me a real celebration of life. And I wonder when I look around me and see how people will take their free thought for granted and cave into social engineering fears and following leaders like they do in the United States that we didn't even elect, that had just been placed and we were told we elected them. I wonder why people are doing that. And so Mark and I continue to speak out, bringing truth to light on mind control for people who not only have been horribly abused, not only for our PTSD military in need of reclaiming control over their own minds and lives, but for the people everywhere who have been socially engineered just to accept this world of trauma and wars and violence that is absolutely against innate human nature. So we'll continue speaking out until awareness has risen to the point where the positive necessary change occurs on all levels of society.
I guess I'm going to bring it back to the question. I'm trying to understand where you were when you were in the MKUltra Project. Were you in a cell? Were you a prisoner? Did you have a normal life, so to speak, and they would intervene from time to time? What happened between the ages of 6 and 30?
Well, no, it definitely wasn't a normal life, but nevertheless would have appeared that way to anyone looking in. I looked like a little Catholic girl, and people didn't realize the magnitude of what was being done to manipulate my mind and the abuse that was going on not only within my household, but really throughout my whole environment because, like I said, I was being sexually abused by politicians and policemen. And, of course, my father, I was used in pornography. I was taken to the governor's mansion in Michigan where I was introduced to who would become my owner in MKUltra Mind Control, and that's U.S. Senator Robert C. Byrd. And Senator Byrd was in office. He died just a few years ago, but he was in office as long as I was alive and ran the countries through finances. He held the country's purse strings in the United States, and he delegated money to the projects that further the agenda of what Adolf Hitler and George Bush termed the New World Order. So I met him at the governor's mansion in Michigan, and it was there, too, that where I learned of the Canadian involvement. Pierre Trudeau was there when I was very young. He was there. He was a part of the Jesuit Catholic faction of the MKUltra Mind Control being perpetuated. George Romney was interested in taking what the CIA had learned from Project Paperclip, as well as what the Catholics had learned through such things as the Crusades and the Spanish Inquisition, and making it into a powerful form of mind control within the Mormon Church. And that was just coming on. So at that time, I knew about that, and that the Mormon Church was being promoted heavily through music, because music vibrates the neuron pathways of our brain, and people will often remember things according to a song they hear. They know I fell in love to that song, or they'll remember this or that, and it has a powerful effect on the mind. At that time, the Osmonds were just coming on the scene, and the Jacksons were just coming on the scene, Michael Jackson. And I knew that they were part of the same project that I was, and that they had a very specific agenda that was being pushed through their music and through the harmonics of their music. I was exposed to many aspects of mind control in my earliest and youngest years through the people, the high level of people that I was being prostituted to, and that I was subjected to due to being raised for a high level in MKUltra Mind Control. I was further traumatized within the Catholic Church with occult ritual. All these traumas left me wide open to be easily led and manipulated. It increases suggestibility. And so I was highly suggestible. And whenever trauma occurs, people become more suggestible. For example, when 9/11 happened in the United States, the whole country was traumatized and thus easily led into war. And that was done on a very deliberate, systematic level. When you understand the components of mind control and how fear is an extreme basis for it, and religion is also a basis for it, especially religion that preaches a lot of fear. It leaves people easily led and easily manipulated on a mass scale. Well, my whole life was full of trauma and being led into the project. I didn't have any capacity to save myself. I didn't have any choices in it. I didn't have those abilities to stand up at all. It put me into a level where I was programmed on military bases the same way that our military is. I was programmed on NASA installations the same way that some of our astronauts have been. It was a very deliberate, systematic form of mind control that eventually went into technological aspects where harmonics is deliberately used. And it was that technological aspect that my daughter was born into, my daughter Kelly was born into. So there's so many aspects of mind control that were pervasive in my life, all around me, and anyone looking in would never get close enough. I could never think to tell what was going on. I couldn't think to bring those things to mind. So I suppose in that respect I would appear more normal, but not to anyone who looked any closer. And again, my whole environment was just saturated with people who are involved in MKUltra Mind Control. Muskegon, Michigan has been named as the pedophile capital of the United States. And there's newspaper articles to document that title. So my whole environment was pretty much saturated in it. There are certain areas that do become targeted for extreme mind control situations, and that was how my victimization went. I hope that answers your question a little bit better.
When was the first you ever heard the words MKUltra? Was that after or was that during?
I heard Project Monarch more, but I think without, delving into every aspect of memory from my earliest childhood, I would say probably that would have been the governor's mansion. The discussions there were extensive on a very deliberate manipulation of it that came through, again, through Project Paperclip, where the Nazi and fascist scientists were brought in. The Germans, through Himmler research, had long since learned that when a person is traumatized, they're easily led, and that was a basis for Hitler's mind control. So they were using that as a form of mind into society to usher in what Adolf Hitler and George Bush termed the New World Order.
Do you think the government is slowly but surely trying to traumatize all of society through the media in order to make them complacent?
Absolutely, no question about it. Social engineering is very strong. When you look at Gerald Ford's cabinet, he had George Bush as the head of the CIA. He had Dick Cheney as his Secretary of State, Donald Rumsfeld as the Defense Secretary, and Jack Valenti as his press secretary. Jack Valenti was head of the Motion Picture Association of America. He decided what information would be allowed through the controlled medias here in the United States, and the manipulation of minds through information control is very strong and a very deliberate plan, and has been for generations now. I wouldn't say it's being done slowly. I would say it's been done very quickly and harshly through things like 911. When Kennedy was assassinated, these criminals that had the agenda of ushering in the New World Order were definitely put in place at that time. The Kennedy assassination traumatized the nation and allowed for the first grip through the media on the minds of the people. 911 was another quantum leap, and we continue to see many aspects of this kind of manipulation going on through school shootings in the U.S. and other violence in society that perpetuates the trauma that makes people highly suggestible. And when that happens, that's when people lose more of their freedoms, more of their free thought, more of their rights, and that agenda is furthered. People are beginning to reclaim their control over their minds and their lives. They're beginning to realize that when trauma happens and is being perpetuated by the media, that they think twice and they safeguard their free thought. They begin to critically analyze that. And this is a very important, giant step forward that I've been able to see. I'm so thrilled to be at this point in history where people are waking up en masse. Awareness is the first step towards positive necessary change. And with shows like yours, it's bringing awareness that much stronger out there for people to be able to start consciously taking back control of their lives and stopping the pervasiveness of this mind manipulation that's going on. I think the strongest evidence of that is right now in U.S. politics with this election that's coming on. It's detailed in both Trance Formation of America and Access Denied how the elections in the United are manipulated and how they have been accelerated through the electronic voting machines and the Electoral College. Those are two very strong components for the criminals that have been in control of the U.S. government for so long are able to perpetuate their agenda. And that goes into the Bush-Clinton dynasties and how the illusion of change in politics was created and why it was created and how that is actually only dividing the people. There are not two political parties in the United States. There's one, and it's that adverse agenda that believes in the mind control of the masses. And the other one is just coming to the forefront now through a handful of politicians who have steadfastly, Mark is not the only government insider who was outraged at what was going on. There's many. And so we're seeing a change. We're seeing where the plan to maintain the Bush-Clinton dynasties is crumbling. They tried last election to put Hillary in office, and it didn't work. The people were appalled by her blatant, obvious criminal activity, and that didn't work. They put Obama in instead, and when you follow the money behind Obama, it went right back to Senator Byrd, and it becomes quick and easy to see, what's going on there. Well, now we've got the likes of Trump coming out and saying that he's representing the people. Whoever the American president is, he is only the face out front. The real power is behind the scene, and it's that same handful of people that were in office with Ford. It's the Bushes and Cheney and Rumsfeld, and we're looking at the same handful of criminals, and the Clintons definitely figured into that, way back. But it's crumbling. They're still not able to, at this point, if Hillary Clinton does not get in, it's showing how the internet and the voice of the people and awareness is starting to give people back their power, where they're able to think beyond what the media is telling us. The media tells us we want Hillary Clinton, but the people here are screaming, no, we do not want Hillary Clinton. So we're seeing a huge information revolution happening in the United States as evidenced through this election. Where it goes from here remains to be seen, but we need to continue raising awareness and getting the information out there on mind control, not only of individuals, but of a population, not only the United States, but the whole world. This is a global agenda, and people need to wake up and take back control of their lives.
You talked about the movie industry. I interviewed Crispin Glover a couple of weeks ago. He played George McFly in Back to the Future. He's been in many movies. And he told me directly that movies simply do not get made unless they serve the agenda which is set by the corporations.
Yeah, it's been that way for a long, long time. And it's so good that people are finally waking up to that fact. And I think the internet and shows like what you're doing are key in having made that difference. And when Mark and I began speaking out, there wasn't internet, and we had to, do it through get information out there through the mail and through speaking, and we've spoken all over the world. And we spoke in Germany, for example. We stood right at the podium where Hitler stood at one point, and we were in Truth to Light. That is very nice. We spoke to their leading mental health professionals on how to treat people who are healing from trauma, and how to effectively bring them back to their full self-empowerment. We spoke there on Hitler's birthday 2 years ago, doing that with the highest levels there. We spoke in Italy when Cardinal Law of the Boston Catholic child abuse scandal was delivering a eulogy for the Pope, and was brought over and given a higher position than Boston even in the Basilica there. And when we spoke in Italy at the same time that all that was happening, the head of psychiatry for all of Italy was on national television telling the people to listen to what Mark and I had to say, because it would help to restore free thought to Italy, as well as anyone else who had been traumatized through not only the pervasive Catholic abuses, but anywhere in society, and anyone who's been in war, and they can reclaim control over their minds. But Mark and I have been been able to speak out globally on this subject. It's understood far deeper in other countries than it is here in the U.S. And again, that is because of the media's having dumbed down the population to the extent that it has, in addition to that global education system, the Common Core, that one of our presidential candidates now, the one that came out of the blue, Donald Trump says is the first thing that he's going to be getting rid of. It's not that I'm supporting Trump, I'm not saying that, but I certainly support getting rid of Common Core out of the school system. And it was a deliberate plan to control the future by controlling the knowledge base of the children. It's known that when our knowledge base is controlled, we all formulate our thoughts, opinions, and actions based on what we know, and we need to know that has been manipulated and limited only to further an agenda that is contrary to the human spirit. We need to gather our strength of spirit, think free, and start standing up for the quality of life that is innate to humanity, and that is peace, love, freedom, free thought, and compassion.
What is the most dangerous game?
The most dangerous game is a military maneuver where the survival of the soldier is based on being hunted, and they've got to survive. In my case, I was subjected to the most dangerous game, and I had to have all my clothes off, and I was hunted, and then when I was caught, tortured and programmed. It totally defeated my ability to really even have a survival mechanism in place anymore. I was so robotic. I could only do exactly what I was told to do. Stronger than my own survival mechanism was my maternal instinct, and having a daughter that I wanted to protect was the most powerful aspect inside of me, and not being able to protect her was the most horrific torture and trauma that I ever endured. And it too made me more easily led and robotic for carrying out the agenda of this shadow government of the United States during the Reagan-Bush administration.
In your book, you recall that you were taken to Bohemian Grove.
Yes.
You were sexually abused there.
Yes.
Can you describe Bohemian Grove? What it's like inside the compound? What does it smell like? What's the furniture like?
Yeah, I could describe all that aspect. Much of my memory on something that's very close up to the experience that I was having. There was a place called the Underground, which was a place where the highest level politicians would discuss many things. You know, it's just where they could talk freely about mind control plans or black budget, black ops that were going on at the time. They could discuss anything in a place like that. And
now, were they costumed or in cloaks, or are they just in suit and ties?
Not the part that I was exposed to. Now, I know there's different levels of Bohemian Grove, and whenever I was there, it was the political level, and
so you were never there in front of the giant owl with the ritualistic...
Yes. Oh, absolutely. Oh, yeah, absolutely. That too. That was definitely a part of the traumatization that was very extreme and very perverse. There's a lot of perversion goes on at Bohemian Grove, and these politicians were, you know, I mean, they don't know any limits to their power, and their sexuality is very distorted as a result. and they're very extremely perverse. And yes, definitely I was exposed to that aspect of things as well. That's why I was there, because since I had been sexually abused so early on, my sexuality was heightened, and much of the operations that I was involved in and used in involved sexuality and prostitution to various government leaders and that aspect of things too. So,
can you name any of the government leaders that you were prostituted to?
De la Madrid of Mexico. That's a powerful one, because at the time NAFTA was being ushered in, and Brian Mulroney of Canada. You know, because again NAFTA was being ushered in, and I was exposed to politicians, of course, in the United States, like Reagan, who had a few notorious perversions. So, yes, I was exposed to several government leaders that are detailed in Trance Formation of America, which again is our testimony for the U.S. Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence Oversight. And that is something that I hope everybody will just, pick up and read and get the facts.
I'm just trying to understand what's happening here. Like, you have the Bohemian Grove, political leaders from all over are flown in. They're discussing how the world should be run. Is the sex part of it some sort of blackmail used on all these people, so they're all in this together?
Absolutely.
So while all their sickest fantasies may be fulfilled, at the same time, it's quite sick. It's like making a deal with the devil.
Absolutely, and it's covertly filmed, and it is definitely used as blackmail, and it keeps people in line. And many of them were acutely aware of it. It's not like it was always covertly filmed. There were times when, even if it was, you never saw like a camera set up because they were hidden, but nevertheless, many of them already knew that it was being filmed, and they didn't care because they weren't going to go against the agenda anyway. They were all in for the agenda anyway. So they had no problem with that aspect of it. But it was a safety measure just in case somebody did want to turn. It's like, well, they'd be able to release that. And it seems that people respond more to political perversion as being the worst evil quicker than they can grasp the magnitude of what the agenda is for mind control of the masses, which is eroding our free thought and expression and soul expression. That is absolutely horrendous. When the American people are being divided in political situations, one thing that will be brought out is a perversion diversion, is what I refer to it as, such as they brought up with Bill Clinton, and then that takes people's minds off of the real issues of what's really going on. So, I don't really want to dwell so much on the sexual aspect, but I'm really glad that you brought up the fact that, yes, it's used as blackmail, and it can be ultimately used as a powerful weapon to divert the minds of the people off of other issues if necessary.
Was there any murders that took place at Bohemian Grove?
My gosh, yes, many. That, again, those are detailed in...
okay, that's a hell of a thing to kill a person.
In Trance Formation of America.
That's a hell of a thing to see someone get killed.
It is.
How did the people there react to that?
Different ways, and it's just the way things are supposed to be. I'm sure there are either those who are traumatized by it or those who feel empowered by the death having occurred. And I've seen many horrific things. My first handler in MKUltra Mind Control was Wayne Cox, and he was the serial killer that was, just, he was a CIA assassin, but his programming kind of went awry, and he became just a serial killer on top of that, which was extremely traumatic for me and was a huge part of preparing my mind for robotic mind control. It was at that point that I was thrusting on the White House Pentagon level during the Reagan-Bush administration. To see death is very traumatic. It's also why our military is in need of information on healing from that kind of trauma. But the healing from it has been classified the same way that mind control itself is classified. They're not going to provide an antidote to a problem they won't admit exists. And our military is suffering horrendously for that. And because Mark and I have the keys to being able to reclaim your mind after the most horrific of traumas, then it's like a sliding scale. It's information that everyone can use for reclamation of their own free thought, for being able to expand their thought, think further, think beyond the trauma of their experience, move forward in life, live true to soul, and be able to stand for the things that they believe in again. To stop the night terrors that creep in from such horrific abuse, intrusive memory flashes that cause, the kind of flashback that can perpetuate violence even further. It stops all of that. This information's got to get out there. Mark and I are, we've released the information through access denied, and it shows step by step how I was able to heal. And like I said, people all over the world are using that to reclaim control over their own minds and lives. And we have taught mental health professionals on a global scale on how to help people heal from PTSD and mind control. It's good to see the negative of my past being turned into a positive to help others. And ultimately, that is my focus at this point. We've been blowing the whistle for 25 years. We've been talking about the traumatic aspects of mind control. When Mark and I started, nobody even knew what the words mind control meant. And now it's a household word. People are aware of it. Now we need to get that antidote out there just as strong so that people can begin living with that strength of spirit again and move forward in life the way that life is intended to be.
I really like this question that one of my audience members put out for you. How did she originally figure things out? How did her therapist play a role in her recovery? And how did she know who to trust?
Oh, that's beautiful. Okay, yeah. Well, when Mark first rescued my daughter and me, I had no capacity for trust. None whatsoever. Mark had a lot of animals. He had a lot of pets. And it didn't matter if it was fox or raccoon or dogs or whatever pets he had around him, they all loved him and they trusted him. When a person is traumatized to the extent that I was, develop heightened senses in other directions that are real strong. And my sense connection was with animals in nature like that, and I could see that they trusted Mark. Well, in my life's experience, people who abuse children abuse animals and vice versa. And so much so is that a fact that since Mark and I have been speaking out, the Human Services in the United States has joined with the animal with the Humane Society on for animals, that if a child is being abused, they investigate the animals. If the animals are being abused, they investigate the children, because they do go hand in hand. And it was all I ever knew and all I ever saw until Mark. And here's these animals. They love him. They trust him. They have this beautiful thing happening, and it was just so encouraging to me. It was my first inkling that I could trust Mark. If they could trust Mark, I could trust Mark. That trust opened the door to being able to accept information that he gave me for healing. Again, these details are in Access Denied, and that included, number one, wearing a watch, because a concept of time equates to a concept of awareness, and awareness is consciousness, and consciousness is what needed to be exercised since I was manipulated and living on a subconscious level. I had to have awareness again. So number one was wearing a watch, and number two was writing out memory. Because compartmentalized memory, the way it's compartmentalized in the brain, the neuron pathways actually physically shut down and close off memory of that event. By using a pen, it shifts the emotionally incomprehensible over to logic, because it takes the logic part of the brain to move a pen. And so I'd start writing out memory, and as I wrote out memory, the walls, the neuron pathways opened back up, those walls came down, and I could reclaim that part of my brain. I could write out that memory in photographic detail. The very act of writing, again, uses logic part of the brain, which is the opposite of the emotional trauma that put it in there. So it heals it. It actually physically heals the brain, and it heals the mind at the same time through writing it out and being able to logically deal with the reality of that situation. Those are two key components, wearing a watch and writing out memory, that are among others that are in our book, Access Denied. And I'm extremely fortunate that Mark had gained that information and used it to restore a mind rather than control one, and handed me the keys to my own mind. And now I want to share that information with others so that they too can know the joy of living with free thought and soul expression.
Another question from the audience directly relates to where you left off. Ask her what she would tell someone who has had this happen to them too and doesn't have a male protector in her life like she does. What then? The protection that Mark gave me was so beautifully wonderful, to be in a safe environment, because safety is key to being able to remember. And I knew love for the first time in my life, and compassion and caring. And I'm very fortunate to have had Mark. And it has given me the ability to heal with enough strength to be able to speak out globally on this subject, and to be able to share the keys that he handed me with others. They need these keys to healing more than anything else. If they're in a supportive environment, that's wonderful. A person needs to be in a safe environment, whether they're by themselves, maybe with their dog, because there's so many PTSD veterans that have dogs now, and are finding the peace of mind that comes with that. It gives them a little safety edge, and sometimes that's all it takes. That's all you need is something like that, to be in a safe environment. And it does not require the love that I had and the safety that I had in that regard. I'm very fortunate to have had that, but it's the component for mind control is to know to know your own
truth, and that is what's going to free you from any kind of mind control, any kind of trauma, any kind of intrusive memory, any kind of PTSD. It will help to be able to start dealing with the reality of your past. And once you face your own truth, then it's easier to start discerning truth around you, and it's what makes it easier for people to reclaim their lives. Yes, I was very fortunate to have Mark, but again, people just need the information and a safe environment, and they can move forward as well.
This is a little out of left field, but in fact, psilocybe mushrooms, those are the magic mushrooms, have been used in post-traumatic stress disorder cases. They're also giving them to people in hospices. That's something I would recommend to the audience to research. Don't just do them, but research recovering from traumatic events using psilocybe mushrooms.
I'm not sure about that one, but I do know that medical cannabis has been proven to help people overcome PTSD, and it actually physically opens neuron pathways in the brain where people will be able to remember compartmentalized memory easier and write it out. And there's a formula for that. It's not like you can just smoke and write out memory. It doesn't work quite that way, but it is an essential and crucial part that the VAs in the United States are denying the veterans here, and there's a huge movement in Washington, D.C. to decriminalize medical cannabis so that it can be used medicinally, particularly in treating PTSD. And that's before Congress at this time. It's still illegal here, but there are some states that are legalizing, and the medicinal purpose has been recognized by the people, and they're moving forward without waiting for Congress any longer on the issue because it has such a powerful effect. Don't know about the mushrooms, but I know a lot about the medical cannabis aspect for the treatment of PTSD.
We're getting a little short on time, so I'm not going to ask all the questions that are left, boil them down to the best. Her and Mark have probably rehearsed everything that can be safely mentioned in public and what to avoid. How do people generally respond to your information? Do you get hostility, harsh judgment, threats?
People have a point of reference for the information these days, particularly in view of the military aspect and the need for the information. Globally, people are much more aware than they are in the United States. It is definitely a hard road. That's why I'm so fortunate to have had Mark and know love and have that added strength to be able to speak out, because when people wake up, they face the truth for the first time. Some people are grouchy when they wake up, and it's not always a pleasant reception at first, but overall, it definitely is. People are happy to have their eyes open and be able to see what's going on around them. It gives them an understanding of what's happening in our world, oftentimes gives them an understanding of what's happening within themselves. And truth never goes away. Truth is like seeds planted, so I don't have to worry about someone who doesn't want to believe. Who wants to believe this kind of horror exists? But nevertheless, it does.
Do you ever get concerned about still being mind controlled?
Not at all. When knowing and understanding mind control is our defense against it. That's why it's so essential to raise awareness on it. When you consciously know what it is, you can defend against it, and stand strong against it.
Is this like hypnotism, where you supposedly can't be hypnotized unless you want to be?
I'm not really sure that it would be quite that simple, because There's also technological aspects of mind control. So once a person is consciously in control of their own mind and their own life, they can make sure that everything that they do and say and stand for is true to soul. And it's that strength of the human spirit, it's that anchor of soul that gives us the ability to maintain who we are and stand strong against any intrusive form of mind control, whether it's traumatic or whether it's technological. And that aspect of being is essential to us maintaining our free thought. And that's why it's so important that people gather that strength of spirit again and anchor within themselves and know their own truth and can stand strong by what they know and what they believe in. It's not been easy being whistleblowers. It's not been easy being opposed by the most powerful government on earth for speaking out on this, and there have been many times when these learned abilities have had to come into play to make sure that that we can't be manipulated. We are known to not be manipulated, and anyone who has endured it and healed from it will not be anymore ever again, because once you know something so deep on that level, you can maintain your own free thought, your own free will, and your own strength of spirit. That's where humanity wins anyway against this whole mind control issue, is they can't understand the strength of the human spirit, and that's where they lose and where we win every time.
Okay, so the government is capable of incredibly heinous activities, sexual perversions, murders, secret societies. So we can agree then that they have no moral center. Why?
Definitely.
Why isn't then that they just didn't kill you and your husband years ago?
It has not been an easy road, not at all. And the fact that Mark was a government insider on the highest of levels gave him insight into how they do, and what their mode of operation is, so that we could stay a step ahead of that game. It's been a most dangerous game of being able to speak out, but it's one that we've won with truth, love, strength of spirit, and a lot of knowledge on how they do what they do. So knowledge, again, is our best defense.
No offense, but I can't imagine that there's anything that you're doing on your end that would keep them at bay. I mean, for God's sakes, they got bin Laden. How is it that they couldn't get to either of you?
Raising awareness. I mean, people would know.
That's what I'm saying. I'm wondering if there's something that you're saying that still has a service to them. Do they care that you talk about this stuff openly? Is that perhaps even a part, like a Mockingbird Project, that they slowly disseminate this type of information through people like yourself, unwittingly?
It can't work that way. It's like I said, it's been a hard road being whistleblowers, and by raising awareness the way that we have, they would only be further solidifying what we say as true, and they don't want to do that. And they have so many laws against whistleblowers. For example, we cannot solicit or advertise or promote ourselves in any way. We cannot accept donations. We cannot make money off of whistleblowing. And it makes it a very hard road for anyone to take, for anyone to do. But Mark and I are absolutely dedicated to raising awareness at all costs. And by doing that, I think that's why they call us whistleblowers, because we just get a little whistle
but
to blow.
You've written books. Are you allowed to profit from the sales of your book?
We can only perpetuate our books, and the attempts against, especially now with electronic books, unless people buy the books directly from us through our website, then they're more apt to get misinformation because information has been changed in electronic books, and they're made free and available all over the internet. You know, those pirated copies are not reliable. So there's different attempts that are made to dilute what we say and to discredit us. It's not easy to just have a little whistle to blow on a subject as important as this that should have global amplification of voice. But people helping people and people spreading the word, and shows like this one help raise that awareness where it makes it impossible for them to stop the truth from emerging. It's already out there, and they can't put it back in the box. You know, the truth is already out.
Cathy, where's the best place? You said your website, I guess, the best place for the audience to pick up a copy of your books?
Yes, and that's an absolute copy. Anything directly from us as the authors will be the facts. And we're also opening an Etsy store right now. It's an internet Etsy site under Reality Marketing, which is our company, and that too will allow for the information to be secure, and that people will get the facts instead of a deliberately altered version of this pertinent information on mind control. Truth makes us free, and we've got to get the truth out there.
What's the website again, Cathy?
It's trance-formation.com is our website, and the one that we're just now opening is on Etsy, and it's under Reality Marketing.
And if any of my audience would like to ask you questions, can they email you or contact you? Is that something you do, or do you do Twitter, any social networking?
No, we don't do any social media, but we are available through the email link on our website, and we answer all our emails. We hear from people all over the world constantly. We've got more emails than we can answer. It might take a little while, but we'll get to it eventually, because it's why we're doing what we're doing, is to raise that awareness and help others.
Well, I very much appreciate you responding to my email. Cathy O'Brien, thank you so much for being a guest on the program.
Appreciate it. Thank you so much.